Welcome back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored to be with our next guest. We're talking about healthy eating, active lifestyles, nutrition. We're joined by Mike Minnis. He's presenting Eat Well to Live Well by Landmark Training. We're talking about Landmark Training Development Company. So Mike, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Jeremy. Doing good. Glad and appreciate you having me on your show.
Absolutely. So you've been on before talking about the great work that you're doing. Let's start, though, for those who missed that episode, give us a little background on Landmark Training in terms of the program that you're running, and then we'll dive into all about nutrition and healthy eating.
Well, Landmark's mission is to create sustainable agricultural environments and food desert communities. And we have a location at 2489 Carnes in the Orange Mountain community where we have an urban farm. And it's kind of unique in as much as there's a number of high towers, a number of other issues, like we got catfish pond, fruit tree orchard, chicken coop, right in the middle of an urban area, you know? So it's unique in that aspect. And we have the only indoor year-round farmers market in the Orange Mountain community. Matter of fact, the only other year-round farmers market, I understand, is the Agri Center. But, and we also have a food pantry that's open Monday through Friday. Because, I guess I asked my directors when we started back in 2011 with the food pantry, how many days are people hungry? Every day. And when you put a person in a place where they no longer have to contend with survival issues, they might be willing to hear something about love,
Absolutely. And what's really unique too is you've taken kind of what would be blight in some ways in the inner city, like you said, but you've turned it into this community garden that's also too a magnetic pull for the community to come in and be a part of. And you're teaching youth when it comes to agriculture, farming, nature, active lifestyle. Like you're teaching them and equipping them to learn how to eat nutritious meals and tie in that element as well. So talk about it from a blight and transformation in the community, but also to an activation for youth and for adults.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Jeremy, because that's one of my passion points, to the extent that most of the children we get come to us from juvenile court and they're labeled as at-risk youth, because they've committed some type of criminal offense. And quite often, when you think about environments, when a person comes from an environment where there may be gang activity, prostitution, drug addiction, alcoholism, and negativism, this is what they're accustomed to. And how can you get anything else out of that if that's all you've been accustomed to? And quite often when they come to us, they gravitate to the positive aspects of what we have to offer like a sponge, to the extent that we don't just teach them gardening, we teach them discipline, teamwork, self-reliance, and these are character traits that can be utilized in any endeavor for the rest of their lives, so that they become productive citizens. And we've got a number of them who are now college graduates. So I get a kick out of that. They've been kicked to the curb with the label as a juvenile delinquent, and now they're college graduates.
I think it's, from my vantage point, it's community transformation, but just like you're talking about, it's life transformation as well, which is really amazing in terms of what you're doing. So let's talk about this program, Eat Well to Live Well. And on your end, you've got kind of a cool outlook in terms of uninformed eating versus knowledge-based eating. So describe that philosophy, especially for the youth.
Well, if you think about some of the social ills and some of the health problems that people have, let's say high cholesterol, high blood pressure, they are associated with food that you consume. So if you're eating a lot of fatty foods, there's a likelihood that your arteries might get clogged up and you might wind up with high cholesterol. If you're eating a lot of foods with high sodium count, there's a probability that you might have hypertension. So it's not that difficult to surmise that what we're doing to ourselves is either good or not so good. They say you are what you eat. And I think a computer term relates to it: garbage in, garbage out.
And I think for many youth, to your point, in terms of what they see, you can't be what you can't see. And so it's the same philosophy also with food. If they've never seen vegetables and all sorts of healthy food options, and they don't know how to make something, then they revert to fast food or things that aren't nutritious. And so on your end, just like you're teaching them how to grow the fruits and the vegetables and the produce, you're also teaching them the skill sets to learn how to eat healthy as well. So talk about that aspect.
Well, it comes down to, in one sense, subliminal suggestion, because we have various medias out here, and the content is typically geared towards corporate production, not necessarily individual health. So you can say that on that note, a person can take subliminal suggestion and be led, or they can endeavor to discover better information, such as nutritional information, and take that on another level and subliminal suggest to themselves and be fed. So in that instance, we have the capacity with all of the various means of communication that we have now to obtain good information should we desire to research for it. And the simple truth is, nutritional education is not being taught. It's something that you have to delve into on your own to gain insights about it. So in as much as there's some good things about the food pyramid, the fact of the matter is this, again, put together by corporations that have their own interests at heart. And individuals have different needs. So you might have specific nutritional needs that differ from those that I might have. But when you come down to the basics, there are essential elements that comprise the human body. And none of them are based on a Twinkie. Copper, zinc, manganese, phosphorus, vitamin K, vitamin C, vitamin D. These are things that are part of our basic elements that comprise our human existence.
Absolutely. Talk about the farmers market. You mentioned, obviously being covered is a huge advantage because you can be year round. And so an inside farmers market, but talk about the farmers market and the ability for all of us to shop local.
This is so important because there's a number of farmers markets around Memphis, and the typical season is from April through October. And what happens is you have local vendors, farmers, who are producing crops with their heart and soul, and they bring them to the farmers market and make them available to the public. Well, when an individual comes and buys those items, it's a reciprocal effect that takes place. When you shop local, it's been said that neighborhoods prosper the more times a dollar touches someone in that neighborhood's hand. If a dollar goes around the neighborhood 5, 6, 7 times, that neighborhood is in shape. If it just goes once or twice, you've got some issues that may have to deal with low investments. And low investment neighborhoods typically translate into a despair, vacant lots, abandoned buildings, and people standing around with nothing to do but maybe illegal activities. But when you shop local, particularly when you deal with the farmers, not only are you benefiting them, but you're getting food that hasn't been grown with endurance in mind. There's certain chemicals that are utilized to extend the life of plants. But local farmers typically don't utilize chemicals to grow their food. So not only has it not been sitting on the shelf for weeks, it doesn't have a bunch of pesticides and herbicides in it. So you're getting to taste something that's more true to form than what you might get otherwise coming from some other country or some other city.
Talk about volunteerism, because as you mentioned, you have a rare chance to transform lives, especially for the youth that you work with, but volunteerism is a big part of what powers you.
It not only powers us, and it's not just because Tennessee is the volunteer state either. Let's take this in a broader context to the extent that, let's say church leaders. During the pandemic, we were under lockdown, the stay at home or shelter in place issue, closed down corporate worship. And one of the most powerful spiritual aspects that we have is being able to come together. It's electrifying. And there's some things that happen in those environments that don't happen anywhere else. So when you take that and put it in an open door context, a church without walls could be a garden. And you bring people together. Some may not be able to physically garden, but they can be spiritual They can be the spiritual side. You can bring youngsters in and put them on the path of not only spiritual development, but health development, just by working a garden. So spiritual leaders have the ability, by starting a garden, to bring back that corporate worship without walls, and under the theme of volunteerism. Come on, guys. We got this piece of land. And if you don't have a piece of land, the city of Memphis has vacant lots all over the place. You go down to 584 Adams to the Shelby County Land Bank and get a list of 2,000 to 3,000 vacant lots around the city. And a lot of them you can buy for $50. And you grow food, and within a year or less, you not only get the return of your money, you probably get a return on your money, not to mention the satisfaction of having other people's lives enhanced. Because it's not just the food that you grow in the garden. Why do people go on nature trails or go camping? They want to get out in this open, beautiful environment that's been created for us. So when you have that type of mentality, or you take that approach, volunteerism has a broad spectrum. You know, I have to say, are heavy in volunteerism, because what we've done would not have been done without many hands at work. It's just powerful that way. Exponential growth.
Absolutely. What's something that you wish everyone knew about Landmark Training?
That we work to benefit other people.
Carry that forward into what you've been able to see with the transformation, because as you mentioned, you now have youth that you've worked with who have come from broken backgrounds and now are graduating college. What does that mean to you personally to see that sort of transformation?
It means that we've got generations that can be leaders in this country, that don't have to take the back seat or cause America to falter in our efforts to maintain a high level of capacity.
You make a lot of product that you sell there at the farmer's market, including for individuals to learn how to can. So talk about some of the produce and the things that you make.
Yeah, well, we are a state of Tennessee licensed food manufacturer, and we just happen to be our own supply chain to the extent that we grow a number of products. We've got apple trees, pear trees, peach trees, apricot trees, and I'll mention the nectarine trees, but my wife likes to eat the nectarines, so they don't typically get in the market. And plum trees, and we make those, we turn around and add value to them by making different jellies and jams. And there's something to be said about growing food to the extent that we have chow chow, we got pickled okra, we got salsa, and the taste is different than what you might get from someplace else because of the fact that it's put together with products that were grown without pesticides and herbicides. You know, it's a beautiful thing when you come into a place where you start to understand that if you take care of the earth will take care of you. Think about one of the things that I discovered was a quote by the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates. He said, "Let your food be your medicine." And when you look at how chemicals or different pharmaceuticals are made, they mimic the molecular structure of plants, which is second best. The plant is obviously the best. So go straight to the source. And if you grow it yourself, instead of taking a prescription to the pharmacy, you can take your scissors and go in your backyard.
What's your favorite when you look at the jams and the jellies and the chow chow and all the things? What's one of your personal favorite items that you sell?
Oh boy, you got me on the spot there, because I like them. It'd be easy for me to say which ones I don't like. But one of the things that I'm really excited about is cilantro. And it just happens to be in our salsa, but cilantro, when it goes to seed, becomes coriander. And coriander is known to alleviate depression and drawback from Alzheimer's. And that's powerful from a little bitty old plant.
So how can we help you? How can we spread the word? What can we do to help? And then obviously, where do we go? So talk about your website too. How do we help? Where do we go?
Well, our website, landmarktraining.org. If you go there, you can click a link and sign up to be a volunteer. Or you can go on a tour at our facility and learn about the different things that we grow and learn about the benefits of the different plants, or start your own. What we've done is duplicatable, and we don't have enough of them. So I'm all for, some people call it competition. I don't think of it that way. I think of it as an expanse. You know, if you look across the United States, there are different allocations that the federal government gives to different states based upon output. The greater output that Tennessee has, the greater financial resources we can gather. So there's enough room for us all.
Well, I love your abundant mentality, that's for sure. And I love everything you're doing in both the community transformation and the life transformation. So Mike, thank you for all you and your team do, you and your family as well. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Jeremy. It's been a blast.